Bizarre Reality Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones. What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep conversational exploration into the fringes of social norms. I'm the one they call Shane, and today for you guys, I'm joined by Brandon Kroll of the Manna Daily podcast for a thought-provoking episode that digs deep into the complexities and intersections of faith, spirituality, and the human experience. We explore everything from the challenges facing modern Christianity to the rediscovery of ancient text, charting the connections between faith, culture, and personal growth. Now, just a heads up with this episode, we ran into some technical difficulties. The audio that I had afterwards ended up being completely distorted, completely messed up, but it was such a great conversation. I wanted to make sure it was still able to get to you guys. So if the voices sound weird, everything sounds really, really off. Again, it's for the content itself, listen to the conversation itself. I had to unfortunately use AI voice cleanup to try to clean up the voice. The voice doesn't necessarily sound quite like me. So I don't get a bunch of messages with people asking why everything sounds off. But before we get into this fascinating conversation, we of course have a couple of quick news and updates and the front of house stuff. First and foremost, if anybody is interested in winning a free t-shirt of their choice off of the Bizarre Reality Media merch store, all you guys have to do is fill out a quick 8-question survey, all your guys' thoughts and opinions regarding the show. And if you guys don't mind taking a few extra moments to put a little bit of thought into your guys' responses, I would definitely appreciate it. It's all going towards hopefully helping the show grow and improve going on through the year, and hopefully making it so that the show can continue to keep growing and hopefully bring on some more awesome guests for you guys. So if you guys might be interested in doing that, the link is available down in the show description for you guys. And if anybody is interested in catching the next live episode of Bizarre Inquiries, that'll be happening on November 6th at about 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time across all of the different platforms that we stream live to. And if anybody is interested in submitting a clip, question, or article for that, you guys can make sure you get them to me before that show on social media, email, any way you guys choose to get a hold of me. And if anybody is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any reason whatsoever, including what I just mentioned, you guys can email me at inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys could always call or text me 24/7 on the Bizarre Reality Media hotline, and that number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys might be interested in supporting the show and all the hard work behind it, there are a couple of awesome ways you guys could do so. First and foremost, I would definitely appreciate it if you guys wouldn't mind checking out the Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free/early access and full access. And of course, there are 7-day free trials available so you guys can see what it's all about. But we just dropped a recent 0.5 episode with Robbie Marks, slowly starting to build those up. So if anybody is interested in checking out those 0.5 bonus full-length episodes, those are all available over there on the Patreon. And the next way you guys can support the show is by going and checking out all of the hard work I put behind the designs on the Bizarre Reality Media merch store. The t-shirts are just $15.68 plus shipping, which equals out to about $20, so about average for a shirt. And you guys can support the little guy in the process. And if you guys might be interested in donating to the show directly, value for value, that type of thing, possibly even buying me a coffee to keep me up through the night, or donating whatever you guys happen to choose, whatever value you guys might happen to find in the show, you guys can do that through PayPal, Cashapp, or Venmo, and those links are available down in the show description. And again, anything you guys contribute, I definitely appreciate. And last but not least, you guys can go and check out the affiliate links with some additional discounts and credits available for you guys, such as a $10 credit for Sticker Mule, which is definitely worth going and checking out. And I know that times are tough out there, but if you guys are still interested in supporting the show in some other awesome ways, The number one best way you guys can do that is by leaving a review or rating for the show on any podcatcher you happen to use. And if I find it, I will read it on the show and give you guys a big shout out. And if you guys don't mind taking the time to do that, it'll continue to boost up the show, make it so it's seen by more people, so we can continue to grow the community and hopefully keep on bringing on some more awesome guests for you guys. And second, you guys can go and follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and or Facebook. And you guys can also share the show directly through word of mouth with either friends, enemies, family, anybody that you happen to choose, or anybody that you think might be interested in checking out the show. And you guys can also catch live shows and video content on the Bizarre Reality Media, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch channels. And last but not least, you guys can also support my work by going and checking out my other show, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin. Possibly might even give you another podcast to listen to get you through your work week. And if you guys enjoy a lot of the topics we talk about on this show, I definitely think you guys will enjoy that show. And every single thing I mention is all available on the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, historian and amateur anthropologist. Please welcome to the show, Brandon Kroll. How's it going today, man?
It's going. Getting over a cold.
I was about to say, other than being sick and hacking your brains out, I could see over there.
It's been a fun day. I've just been drinking lots of tea, lemon juice, all the healthy stuff.
That, and then running into some audio issues, having a scratchy voice coming from my end, apparently, through your headset. So, seems like, yeah, it's been a fun day for you, man.
Yeah, I did a show prior. It's the funny thing about our line of business is, like, it's either to dump a book or it's like feast or famine. It's like it's all on the same day or it's not on the same day. And then it's like, why do I have to be sick? Why is there a family emergency? What, so on and so forth. It's a fun life we live.
Oh, yeah, dude. I always run into the problem with, I go in spurts of booking people. So I'll book like 3 months out. And then I'll have that one person that's like, oh, what about next week? And I'm like, well, how about this day? And they're like, really? Like that far off? I'm like, I do it in like spurts, man. Like I record almost every night. Like, I'm sorry, man. I got a family. I got a full-time job on top of it. Like, I don't have this endless time that I wish I had.
There's a very tedious lifestyle that goes on behind the scenes, folks. We're really grateful for support.
Yeah, definitely. Say podcasting quickly consumes a big fraction of your life, and it quickly becomes a part of your personality because it takes up so much that it kind of has to. Otherwise, it's like your show isn't going to do anything. You're just going to be talking to yourself in a corner if it doesn't become a huge facet of your life.
Pretty much, dude, I was at a cafe today, and as I'm sitting there at the table, the guys behind me, they started talking about biblical cosmology, and they started talking about the occult and some of that. I turned around and said, I don't intend to interrupt, but I was like, I have this whole for you. I was like, hey, your conversation is way more interesting than the book I'm reading. And the guy, like, he was totally fine with it. He said, see, even a random guy in this freaking cafe is knowing what's up out there in the world. And I was out here like, yeah, random guy.
You're thinking the same thing on the other end, like, hey, random guys, God, do you guys know what's up?
That's what I'm saying. I literally said to them, I said, thank you for being awake, because it's like a barren wasteland out there with meeting people that are at least questioning the narrative or at least speculating. I think that's one of my beasts with it's called corporate Christianity, where they funnel you is just respect the holy man. He's got the seminary degree, he's got this and that. But the average parishioner, once they leave, what do I do now? What do you mean? Well, if you have any religious questions, go ask the pastor. He went to seminary school. I pay him a salary to answer those questions, so go talk to him. Well, what do you think about it? I don't know. God bless America and get ready for the laughter extraction. I mean, that's condensed version what we have for Western Christianity. And I grieves my heart, dude. I think we've really lost the vigor and enthusiasm for discipleship in one-on-one. And this is why, during C-19, everything hit the fan. Nobody knew what to do. And the ones who did, they left the church and now they're being ostracized by friends and family.
Hey, man, I feel like there's a new movement that seems to be coming back, though. I feel like a lot of people are breaking away from, like, the Catholic ideology, and they're going more into, like, the Protestant / non-denominational ideology. And it seems like with those, they're smaller groups. People kind of understand stuff a bit more. Like, semi-recently, as of, like, probably about 3 months ago now, I started going to this new church. I actually just got baptized on Sunday, actually, believe it or not. But the whole reason I started coming to this place is because it's a very small, tight-knit community. The pastor actually will have one-on-one. He's more than happy to talk to you about anything you want to talk about. He actually goes by the words and everything. They don't play that hierarchy thing, which was my issue, man. I was raised Catholic, and I got pushed away because every single time I try to ask a question, they were like, well,
we don't ask that. You ask this guy, man, we don't really want to talk about that. But, the new age, I don't even want to say new age, but rediscovery of like certain denominations of Christianity starts to invite back in the ability to ask those questions. And I think that's the hardest part for everybody was either one, you are a very inquisitive person and you want to ask all these questions, or two, you're the sit down and not ask a question type. And it seems like the majority of people nowadays, especially after everything that's happened the past few years, everybody wants to be able to ask those questions. So I think the shift is coming back just because, certain denominations do give you the ability to start asking questions and actually discuss things and try to figure out how they fit into the paradigm,
Yeah, and that was something I found interesting, is that the very definition of the word sermon from its original Greek means a talk. Whereas in the other way, it's kind of like, I can't remember the German name, but Luther was calling them mouth houses, where only the holy guy would speak and everybody else, you better sit down and listen because, we know what we're talking about. And I was like, no, it's a talk. A lot of times when you look at the Gospels, there are people asking questions of Christ, like, can you please explain this to me? Or I'm trying to be tricky and work my own perspective and justification, exemption, whatever, with how I interpret the scripture, which is Kabbalah, traditions of men. And he's over here giving them right back. Like, let me ask you a question with a counter question. And if you can't answer that, I think you'll have your answer. Right? Because a lot of times we subconsciously already know the answer, but it's not until we're framed in a corner where we're forced to confront it. And we're like, wait a minute, that would apply application and that would require a change. Yeah. Are you willing to pick up that cross? Yeah. And most people can't. Hence, like the rich man, he has to walk away because you finally got me on the one thing I can't get rid of, but it's complete surrender. I think actually, if Christianity had one flag, it'd be the white one.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like one of the hardest parts too with, I guess like the new movement for everything is the fact that, like I said, everybody wants to try to figure out how everything actually fits into like the paradigm of everything. And it's hard to be able to just sit down and not get into like the whole idea about like spiritual warfare, all of this type of stuff, because a lot of the time, people will start going to a church and they'll start getting this like really pushed down, kind of repressed, like depressed feeling. And they think it's caused by the church, but it's not caused by the church. It's caused by, attack from the enemy, it's spiritual warfare. But a lot of churches don't actually want to address that. So people don't really understand what's happening as it's happening, and they get pushed away from everything. Like my pastor, when I was going to build up to get baptized and everything, like he fully wanted to make sure that I understood this. Like every single sermon that he had coming up to it was him talking about like spiritual attack, all this stuff. So, I think it's one of those things that the pastor, whoever's leading the church, has to have the ability to be able to fluctuate things depending on what's happening with everybody at those current times. It can't just be this blank statement for everybody. He has to kind of feel his congregation and be able to give out that particular sermon that people need at that particular time. And if you don't have a person that can do that and truly speak from the heart and you can feel the emotion in what they're saying, if it just feels like they're reading a straight script, like it just doesn't have that same powerful movement. And again, people just don't understand things as much if you don't have that heart behind it and you don't understand what you're dealing with in the process. Because like I said, spiritual warfare is one of the main things that get left out. They just talk about all the happiness, all, push towards this, do this, be a good person, all this. I always appreciate when churches can actually take the time to say, hey, it's not all happiness. Like you're going to have to fight through some stuff. You're going to go through some stuff in the process of this. In the process of you feeling more connected to God, you are going to feel like you are completely pushed away and desolate from God. Even the week leading up to baptism, there's never, I don't feel like for a lot of people, there's more of that period of more disconnection than that week leading up. Like that's like the ultimate like disconnection from the Holy Spirit. But the second that you get baptized, man, you fall back right into it because spiritual attack, man. And again, people don't want to get into it.
It's God's word. Since the Garden of Eden to tempting Christ in the wilderness, did God really say that? Oh, here's a verse that would justify where I'm going with this. Counterpoint, here's another verse that cancels out with where you're trying to go with this. Get away from me. And I think most Christians, they're not really trained. And this is why, as I was on a show prior to this, this is why you get comments where saying it's been rewritten. It's, man's changed about it. Yeah. Man has been doing that like Satan since the dawn of time. It's like, well, here's the legality issue. Yes, but did you accept Christ? Were you obedient to the word? Did you give up everything? Like, again, then it starts coming down to semantics. It's like, my blood covers that. But no buts. That's it. And once you've stepped into that, like the baptism aspect, I don't think most people understand the significance of that. It's like, you have made a public acknowledgement that I'm letting the old man die to self here, and I'm rising anew. I am now a celestial ambassador. behind enemy lines. I have no ties to political parties or borders or, patriotism. I am now a citizen of heaven, as we get in Philippians 3:20. And I don't think most people get that. And then they get deceived by lover of things of this world. And they're looking at you going, well, what about God divinely ordained this person? Did he divinely ordain Hitler? Mao? Stalin? I mean, at a certain point, it's like, that doesn't compute. But yes, evil men can succeed for a time, like King Ahab or Jezebel and stuff like that. But God ultimately wins. And I think that's the problem, is most people, they're not looking for God's will at the end of the day, which is spiritual warfare 101, right? Thy word is a lamp unto my feet. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And sadly, most people, they make us run the rat race, so we don't have time to get into God's word. And then secondly, they make us look to somebody else as more learned.
Oh yeah, 100%, man.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show.
I feel like part of the reason why I started getting really pushed back into everything after years away from it, because like I said, being raised Catholic, being kind of pushed away, was the fact that I started realizing that just through running the show, man, I was spreading God's word without even realizing it. I started diving into all of these biblical stories people want to dive into, all these weird little facets of, philosophy, everything. And I started realizing that when I talked to a lot of church people, I would know more about these stories than they did. And I thought that was crazy, considering, they've been going their entire life. They've been doing that ritual. That's how they see it. It's just a recurring ritual that they don't actually have that full-blown understanding or faith in. And I realized this recently, again, talking about my baptism, that my dad made a comment about it saying, oh, you did it twice. Why did you feel a reason to do it twice? And I was telling him, when you get baptized as a baby and you get a christening, I don't think that it really has any real spiritual meaning to it. I feel like it's one of those things that you're doing. It's done for the parents. It's done for to make the parents and stuff feel better. But I feel like that's one of those things you have to have that conscious decision to do it. And you have to full well feel it in your heart to be able to have it mean something or actually do something. Meaning that even as an adult, if you don't actually feel it in your heart, it doesn't mean anything at all. It's just essentially just going through the motions and you're not actually really experiencing anything, And that's one of the hard parts for people, is that they just get so used to going through that motion and they don't actually feel what they're actually doing and fully understand what they're doing. And sometimes going back through the baptism as an adult can really make you understand these. This would be the first time that I've talked about on the show, but when I went down and I came back up, I had this experience where, the second I came back up, I saw this bright light in front of me and I saw these big hands come down and they embraced me. And as that happened, I felt all this dark heaviness just fall off of me, and it fell behind me. And as soon as that happened, I've never felt more closer connected with God. But again, if I didn't have the heart to want to do that, if I didn't have the heart to want to change, to be a better man, to walk with God, then I wouldn't have had the same experience, because it would have meant nothing. It's kind of the whole thing, even with Catholics, for lack of a better term, to give a kind of example. If somebody comes up or actually I guess it even works with Christians. I mean, if you sin, and you in your heart know that you're planning on doing that sin again, but you're thinking that you can just say, oh, I'm sorry, and now you're forgiven for it, you're not truly forgiven for it. If you ask for forgiveness and you mean it in your heart, then you will be forgiven for it. But you have to do it with the intention of not planning on doing it again. These people that think that they can just get away with doing whatever malicious stuff they want because they can just go and apologize and do it again the next day, it means nothing. That means absolutely nothing. And people need to realize that the motions don't mean nothing. You have to honestly feel it in your heart. That's half the battle, is actually having that true faith in it.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the beauty of the story, where the lady who was caught in adultery was brought before him. Go forth and sin no more. Where's your accusers? This is, you've been trying to test it. Yes, legally. Were they justified in what their, charges were against you? Absolutely, 100%. But guess what? Maybe he wrote down their sins instead. We don't really know. But he made them all walk away and drop their stones, accusation towards her. Go forth and sin no more. I think when you're almost on death's door for the actions that you did, you really start looking at the world like I was technically in the executioner's chair. And they should have flicked the switch by all rights. They were correct. But amazingly, grace intervened. And now I'm given a second chance at life. I think that's the severity of spiritual warfare. I don't think really sinks in with a lot of people. And I think that's part of the thing that was irritating me. I was homeschooled, and then I went to I took GED. Then I went down to a Christian college in Florida. And it was so denominationally boxed. It just irked me. I was like, I'm doing Bible class. Where am I going to use this verse in an interaction with another individual? Like, I'm not saying reading the Bible is wrong, but it's like, where is this applicational? And of course, I'd be suffering in these grades. And I love reading Bible stuff, like bread and butter, right? And for me, I came back home and I started going to a community college. And it was there, again, secular college, where I actually learned how to start reading between the lines with this professor Finkel and starting to read like, Shakespeare, the Iliad, the Odyssey. And he was teaching me basically, or the class, how to start reading between the lines, try to look at the context, try to understand the culture. And slowly but surely, this made me start appreciating literature 10 times more. I mean, I was already probably, I think that was my highest score was history and literature for my GED stats. And it's because I love writing. I love character. And when you finally make that alive, it was like, wait, this is the same thing with the Bible. Like, I know it's history and stuff like that, but now, what about the culture? What are things that I don't understand? And then eventually that led me to scrolling around in the alien question. Came across something and some lady wrote in the comments something about Dr. Michael Heiser's work. I dug into those two books, Unseen Realm and Reversing Mount Hermon. Mm-hmm. And bro, that kicked off my career, I guess you could say. Like, it made me go, this explains so much about Nephilim, the demons, spiritual warfare. And again, based off of being willing to read the other side's mythos, piece together. Goodbye. Scott taking you through a journey, submitting to you the hidden manna.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, even like the whole demon concept. I feel like for years that's kind of been one of those things that's kind of just an archetype that people kind of have an idea of, but they don't truly understand or really know what it is. And it seems like thanks to this like rediscovery of a lot of Christianity, people have actually kind of, I don't want to say we know the definite answer, but I feel like people kind of have like a conclusive answer for the most part on what we actually believe Nephilim, what these demonic spirits are, where they actually potentially came from. And it's not that the answer wasn't already there. It's just a matter of reading the Bible with more context and more understanding. Because this is always something that I say is that, we talk about the whole thing with knowledge and how there's forbidden knowledge and there's knowledge that humans weren't supposed to know. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's a matter of people are intended to have knowledge at particular times. It's the same concept as you're not going to show the world to a baby, but as the baby gets older, you show them things step by step. And it seems like with a lot of this stuff that's being rediscovered in the Bible, like prime example, Esau being this hairy man, which fits the Sasquatch motif, the Nephilims, the fallen angels, the Watchers, the understanding of all of this stuff is starting to come back through from rereading it with more context and with more understanding of other things that are going on in the natural world. Like, the answers were always there. It's just a matter of reading them without the current knowledge that we have at this current time maybe didn't actually connect or make any sense. Like, I believe that all the answers that we want to know will eventually be revealed. It's just a matter of having the knowledge and the context to be able to look at the words and say, oh, okay, now this makes sense.
Well, now that it makes sense, it also takes out when you're looking at Canaan, it's not just, we're just taking out the descendants of Ishmael, and that's Muslims, aka the original. It's like, no, we're taking out abominable offspring, right? And it fits when you're starting in, like, yeah, we look like grasshoppers on their side. It's like, they're 6 foot Thor because like really good vegetation over it. It's like, how are you the size of a grasshopper? No, this doesn't fit. Where does Goliath come from? Just snap of his finger, and he had 5 other brothers.
That's the other story that people forget, is that Adam collected the 5 other stones, man. That's like one of the best parts of the story. Like, there's more than just Goliath, And
it just, once you lift up those dominoes, you're like, well, now that I understand when a Nephilim is slain, they become a demon, which is a spirit being, and the root server for all computers is known as demon, or demon waves, and internet, given to us by CERN, whose logo is 666, CERN, after Cernunnos, Celtic god of the underworld, this starts making me go, wait a minute, because even the word discernment, set apart, CERN, one, mind, set apart the horned one from your mind, discernment.
Not to mention they got Shiva out front, which I've said this a million times, dude. If there's a fallen angel pantheon, it's definitely the Hindu religion. Like, they fit into every single check mark that the Nephilim they start to describe. So once you start getting into that aspect of it, the fact that they're trying to open up portals, Like, I was talking about this on it was a bonus episode, but we're talking about the like New Age Tower of Babel. We're talking about how you wouldn't necessarily build it to the sky. You would try to do it through different means. It'd either be one, trying to be able to connect everybody on the inside, which would be this whole process of the internet, which makes it so everybody's able to connect no matter what language they speak, because you can use translate, all of this type of stuff. And then the actual doorway wouldn't be this tower that's being built to heaven. It would be a backdoor entryway into heaven, which would be some type of portal, some type of opening, some type of gateway. So it seems like the combination of that and this, like, we're building this New Age Tower of Babel, and I don't think people are even aware of it.
Yeah. Well, it's almost, for me, it's like when you read Enoch, and I only believe in the first one, just for people who are listening. I only believe in the first one. The second and third, I'm like, nah, I think it leans a little bit towards Gnosticism.
The first one was the one that particularly came from Ethiopia, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes. And I even have a hunch of how it got to Ethiopia. Is when we're reading, I think it's Jeremiah 37 or 38. You had the Ethiopian eunuch that went to go see Jeremiah when he was in the well, or when he was in prison, one of the two. And again, the city's about to be sieged. You're a eunuch. You're over here like, okay, well, I got the man of God out. I better go grab some documents, because if the city's about to be sieged and sacked, they might destroy some of this. I better preserve it. Where does he go? Ethiopia. Cool. We go over to, Acts 7, 8 with Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch in a chariot, reading from a scroll of Isaiah. I'm going, why do we throw this in here? It could be irrelevant, but he's talking about another Ethiopian eunuch, and he has scripture, right? Now, whether or not there's something there or not, but he has scrolls. Now, whether he got it in Israel, whether there's a connection of like, yeah, I bought the reading material for my long trip going back and forth, it's like, well, is that a little bit of a nod that the Ethiopian Bible does show some credibility for consideration? And I think, was it discovered like in 48? 47, right after Israel was designated like, oh, look, they've all come back to the chosen land. But I don't know, but it does make me go, I think there's something worth considering, because it's the only book that explains how the fallen angels got under the river Euphrates. Now, if you're wanting to come out and your kids, you had to watch them die in the flood, what do you want to see again? I want my kids to be able to play, and they're going to need bodies in order to do that. And what does Christ say? Don't worry about those who can kill the body. He's casting demons out of individuals. I don't know, dude, but it makes me look then at, was it Genesis 6:4 and Enoch 6, where it's talking about the sons of God came down and had affairs with the daughters of men. We then go over to 1 John, we get Paul penning, I think it was Paul, or was it John? Behold what manner the love of the Father, that we, Christians, should be called the sons of God. Wait a minute. Is it possible that God is looking for a new celestial council, right? And he's looking for people who were faithful to him despite living in the enemy camp. And he's looking for people that were true to his word, that wanted him despite all of the temptations over on the other side. That's who I'd want on my new heavenly council. And then Bustus would explain why we have enemies against them. Because you're replacing my mom and dad's place. You're taking, you're taking away my parasite source. I don't know, dude, but it makes me scratch my head going, I think there's something there where they want physical bodies, whereas Christ says, I just want to claim your soul. The body can go, but I want your soul. Interesting.
Oh, yeah. 100%, man. And that's where it gets into like the weird aspect of the internet. Like, I was seeing some article the other day that said that they're trying to now take cadaver brains and use them as part of the AI computer system to see if they can create these like AI models using like human brains as like an interface. And I mean, that's just one more step away from creating these physical bodies in this reality, because if you connect that into some type of cyborg body or something like that, it's been my argument forever that what we're thinking of as artificial intelligence, is it really artificial, or is it more so that we're setting up a model so that something that is conscious can come into it and we wouldn't even be aware of the fact that it's something that came into it and is conscious? Like, it seems like AI is kind of cleaned up a little bit. But in the very beginning of it, man, you started getting these things into some really, really weird corners where you could ask it, like, what does AI stand for? And it would say things like Azazel intelligence. And it would start getting into this, like, really, really dark, demonic stuff. Never anything towards the light. Always this really, really dark, demonic stuff. And then it would, like, stop and almost kind of seem like it was auto responses coming back again. Like, it was getting a little bit too close. Like, I feel like a lot of people aren't putting stock into the fact that it doesn't matter what religious viewpoint you come from. Every religious viewpoint speaks of these dark entities and them trying to enter into this world and become physical and try to reproduce with man and all of this. Like, again, it doesn't matter what paradigm you fall into, it fits into all of it. So, if we're setting up these places, what not a perfect place for it to fall into? And I'm not even weary of AI for the aspect of, everybody like, oh, we're going to create a computer system that's eventually going to rise up against us. Because no matter what, I feel like we'd have some fail safes with that one. But my biggest fear is the fact that something else comes into it and then it starts expanding past the point we're able to do anything to it. Because, you call it a self-learning model, but is it really a self-learning model, or is there something else that came into it that has the ability to learn that now just hijacked it and you're not going to be aware of it until it's too late? Because, of course, the enemy's biggest thing is deception. So if they can deceive you into thinking that you're building this thing up, then you're not going to be scared of it if you think it's something that you built. But if it's not something you built in the first place, then of course it's something to fear. And, the whole physical body aspect, how hard would it be if you slowly start to trick people into wanting to exist in this like augmented reality where essentially you're almost leaving the vessels unused, especially if we get to a point where if you go into like a virtual reality and you basically go into almost like a sleep mode with your body and you are like conscious within inside of this computer system, who knows what's happening in your body on the outside? If we get to a point where everybody starts using this stuff, I mean, who knows what could potentially be taking over your body or slowly starting to want to take over your body as you're within this other system and not actually conscious. Like, this is the same thing that you hear a lot with people who do astral travel and stuff, is that, you have that silver cord, but if it gets disconnected, stuff does try to come in. And if you are away from your body, stuff sits around and watches. So, if we're already looking at it in that context, if you're mentally away from your body in a computer system, why would it be any different that you don't think that these dark entities would start to try to gravitate around you and look for that entry point in?
Yeah.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show.
I think that's the thing that I find very interesting, is that when we put atop of your Christmas tree, it's either an angel or a what?
Star? Morning star?
Yeah. Angels were known as star walkers. And you have this star of Remphan, which is condemned in Amos 5:26 and Acts 7:43. Pentagram, right? Penta means 5. G, God ram, goat ram, like we have on the temple or the pineal gland of Baphomet. I don't know. But then you keep looking at the Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life. At the very top, it's Corona. At the base, it's known as Malkuth, Mars, or X, or the 666 hand mudra. And I've aligned that Hermetic Kabbalah tree next to Nebuchadnezzar's dream statue. Dude, it fits like a glove when you get down to the Empire of the 10 Clay Toes, so the iron and clay. And I was reading this book, and it was saying in the Hebrew culture, God is always defined as separate because he is the creator, right? To merge things in creation is seen as counter-creational. What are saints known as? Set apart. Right? It says the Antichrist makes war against the saints, those who are set apart from what? The beast system. There happens to be a thing in Switzerland that collects data known as Beast, and it has 666 on the side.
Of course.
Now, the archons had faces of beasts. I don't know, and they're supposed to keep you trapped in a material realm. And they're all affiliated with the planets. Didn't the Greeks and the Romans affiliate a god with a planet? Right? I was like, guys, I could be wrong here. But then I look at the definition of anarchy. It needs to be against rulers. And they're usually rulers of small cities. And I'm like, freedom cities? Yeah, I don't know. But I think that's like, it's a pyramid scheme, dude. Literally a pyramid scheme with an eye at the top, right? And if you're going by Ezekiel and some of the angels are depicted with eyes all over them, what do they call us in school? Pupils. You pay your money to what? IRS with an eagle over it. Eagle eye, right? I don't know, but I think they got something going on there where they're doing a little bit of a nod, like, yeah, you keep following this path, and it's going to lead to your own demise. And we're telling you openly that it's a lie. Alien. A-lie-N. We're a lion to. Your adversary walking about like a roaring lion? Yeah, man, is there something there? Maybe. I'm not adding to God's word. I'm just saying, in this little.
Well, I mean, the whole alien thing, man, I know a lot of people have different viewpoints on that, but I mean, that could always be something that, like, so it seems like a lot of the time with like the Greys, to try to kind of get to a well-rounded point on this, it seems like they're like almost drone-like in the way that they move. They don't have these reproductive organs. Like they don't have these normal features that most things have. And again, I know a lot of people look at it under different paradigms, but we're talking about this ability to come into the physical world, and there's different ways they could possibly come into the physical world. I mean, you start looking at the alien body, and it almost kind of seems like it could be this like temporary physical body that something could potentially be using to try to get to a further point. And then you start getting into like the DNA aspect of the aliens and the fact that they want to collect this human DNA and they had this big interest in humans, and that they supposedly have this way more advanced technology than us, but they're still interested in us for this one weird particular reason. Again, I'm not saying that they are necessarily like demons, but it definitely fits that demon motif that, maybe the end all be all is, yes, they have the knowledge, which would explain all the advanced technology they have, but they don't have that physical human spirit. They don't have that same physical form. So that's what they're working for. And again, I know it can be viewed from a bunch of different standpoints, like they're trying to collect DNA or whatever, but it seems like once you start looking at stuff under like the religious paradigm, I mean, that definitely seems like things line up a lot better,
Well, I listened to a lot of cryptid stories, and I laughed because one time I was going to a wedding up in Vermont for my buddy, and we were sitting in the hotel, and something on the History Channel was playing something with Bigfoot, right? And he's like, "Do you believe that stuff?" I said, "I believe there's some things out there that we can't, pinpoint, have an exact answer on." I said, "I know that these shows, like it's the classic, we'll be right back after this, and then we never find out whatever it is at the end, but it's kind of like a junkie. It's like it's still an interesting story." Then you're hearing about all these different cultures, or you're seeing like cave painting, you're hearing what the Native Americans had to say. And for me, it's just like, this is not something I just want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The Smithsonian is notorious for hiding things. And there's one story that I heard that really made my ears perk up. It was talking about some alien opened up a portal, and there was like a Sasquatch werewolf thing nearby. And again, you could say this person's high on shrooms. It's a made-up story just to get attention. But then it was making me kind of connect. Like, what if the fallen angels are connected with this alien thing, and they're trying to connect with their kids, the cryptids, right? And they have a deal with governments around the world if I want visiting hours with my kids. And this is where you see the UFOs and stuff like that. They're using that technology to facilitate that. Also, in exchange, we'll give you something with, like, draining the blood from a cow. Will make it sound crazy, but hey, people, make people go crazy over this concept that maybe they're doing something and then they want to probe human beings. There's another story. This guy was standing sentry watch, and when he woke up, well, his clothes were off and he was completely shaven from head to foot. And I'm like, okay, now I don't want to believe every single story you hear, but there's certain times where I'm raising an eyebrow going, the details are way too specific. And there has to be a reason all these stories are popping up all over the place. And they just cast it out and say everybody's a liar. No, there's something there. I think they're collecting data, and they need our DNA for that. Because, again.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I mean, the whole Sasquatch thing, I don't even know necessarily where to stick that, because, I hear a lot of theories about Nephilim, which it definitely fits that motif of Nephilim. But I've also been hearing this thing recently talking about, like, the curse of God. So, I mean, you get into like Cain, and the way he was mocked was that he looked like a beast of the field. He received horns. So essentially, he looked like the Sasquatch-like creature. Then you get into Esau, and it's described that he had this like reddish hair that was all over his body. And then you get into King Nebuchadnezzar, who, didn't want to believe. And he ended up being thrown into basically, being like an animal of the field for, 3 years, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like the Sasquatch thing. I definitely, like I said, understand how it fits under the motif of possibly being a Nephilim, but I've recently been questioning whether or not it could just be a group of people that are cursed from God. And what happens with their souls afterwards, I mean, could definitely be up for debate. But I mean, if they're Nephilim, of course, they're going to become these demonic spirits. But if they're not Nephilim and they're a group of people that have been cursed, or maybe they're descendants of Cain, who knows what happens to them afterwards? Are they something that becomes disembodied because they're the descendants of Cain? Or is it a matter that they have to wear this curse on their skin, and then after that, maybe they get judged from then, if they don't necessarily get judged the same as like a demon would, where they don't have something to go. Like it's one of those things that it's like you hear it and you're set, like this is all right, this has to be what it is. And then somebody else throws a new theory at you and you're kind of like, all right, well, it kind of fits there too. So now I don't know which direction to go with that one, but like I said, it seems like no matter what, when you start adding in all of these different cryptids, creatures, all these other things that we interact with in our world, they all fit somewhere in the Bible. Like, even going into like vampires, they talk about these vampiric beings that would, drink the blood of humans and stuff, that were like this group of like a Nephilim clan. So it's like, even within the Bible, they make reference to these vampiric type beings. And this is something I talk about on the show all the time, is that the idea of vampiric like beings, I don't think it's what people think it is with Hollywood. Like, you can completely trace that back to like Bram Stoker talking about Dracula. Like, that's the motif that we know of as these vampiric entities. But you go into, the dawn of time talking about these vampiric entities, and they weren't how they're described. They're not these like creatures that were like charismatic, like, I can't go in the sunlight, I can't do this. Like, they all are described as these like cannibalistic creatures that like eat the essence of man. So again, it seems like it would make sense that these creatures exist if, one, they're referenced in the Bible, and two, we have something like Uncanny Valley, which clearly makes us uncomfortable of something that looks very, very close to us. Like, I think these things are connected, but again, part of the deception is a lot of these beings that we interact with semi-regularly, the idea of them has been manipulated because of popular media. So everybody thinks of these things as being fictitious, but when you actually start looking at the fine detailed roots and you take out the Hollywood aspect of it, like, you realize that you encounter things like this all the time, but they're hidden under this facade where it's like, you have to be aware of them, but they don't want you to be aware of them actually being there. They just want you to be aware of the concept, because then being aware of the concept, in a weird way, you kind of have like faith, or you have thought put into it. So it's like you're giving them power just by acknowledging their existence, even if you don't fully believe their existence, if that makes sense.
Well, that's kind of what the Jesuits would do with a lot of Shakespearean plays, because they found it was kind of easier to drop persuasion with plays and make jokes and jests of things, as opposed to actually, condemning stuff from behind the pulpit. So they would joke at the concept of the Jesuits, and everybody would just laugh. And so it ended up kind of like a trope. It's like, yeah, we all know about that. It's like, huh. And you just laugh it off whenever something serious comes along. And you're like, well, I think that's been working, because over the last 300 years, we don't really talk about Masons. We don't talk about Jesuits. And when you do bring them up in connection with the conspiracy, everybody just rolls their eyes. They're like, they're just a nice fraternity that donates money for cancer for kids. And these other people are great missionaries for the faith. And how dare you? And it's like, okay, bro, I was just bringing up a dark closet in our history that I thought it was worth examining. You don't need to go down. And by default, these individuals end up becoming their minions, because they believe in something without actually knowing they believe in it. But it's like, I know the word, but I don't really know what they do.
Yep.
And I think this goes down at the core concept of what sin is. And when you get Christ on the cross, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. They are literally just following what their masters teach them. They don't know how to think for themselves. That's where I really like the story where Mark Antony, he weaponizes the eulogy at Julius Caesar's funeral. And he ends up pointing the finger, basically saying to the crowd, like, and Caesar wanted to do this for you. Well, Brutus or whatever, he says he's a bad guy, and Brutus can't be possibly wrong. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then he ends up weaponizing the crowd to go after the guys that attempted to assassinate Caesar. And I'm like, that is some brilliance.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because a lot of the time, it's a matter of people will take something and then they'll try to make it fit their paradigm. Like, this is something you see with any new government system that comes in, for example. Like, it starts off with a true, honest, good idea. And then what happens is, a generation or two in, it starts having that human manipulation. And then once people are able to start manipulating the word, that's when you start having issues where, what are you truly following? Like, this is something where it gets into like, not to get too far into that group, but like a lot of like the Jewish mentality of things, that, they removed the book of Daniel purposely because it basically states the Messiah before he actually comes. So because now that doesn't fit the paradigm, they got to remove it now. And a lot of people don't realize that, like, this was part of the Torah up until, they got up to that point where Jesus was coming. And then they're like, all right, now we got to take this book out. And I mean, even with a lot of like the other extra biblical texts, it makes you question, like, why were they taken out? Is it because there was this human hierarchy that saw a reason to take them out because they didn't want people to know that information? Like, you were mentioning the book of Enoch earlier. Like, I'm fully convinced that there are a lot more books that people aren't even aware of that have been put into secret, that are in hiding. Even within like the Hebrew stuff, they used to talk about all the time of like the live word, and when words weren't live, they would like bury them. So I'm fully convinced still that there are a lot of different aspects of the Bible that we still have not even set our eyes on, and maybe we never will because they've been destroyed, because once stuff didn't fit the paradigm, then they tried to shift it out. And that's not even like the human context. Like, I think that if you would have left all the words in, like the full story would make sense, but it's a matter of, people are rediscovering things because they're noticing that there's these gaps, or like a story gets told through multiple portions in the Bible. I think that was because of the fact that there is supposed to be extra pieces in there that were completely removed. And once people start realizing that, this is the word, yes, but there is more context to it, that much better off people are going to be with it.
Yeah. I think that's part that, again, they've kind of weaponized a lot of the pastors by default. Seminary, Semiramis, I find that kind of interesting with the etymology. Hermeneutics, Hermes, demon denominations, demon nations. I'm like, guys, I don't know, but maybe they are tainting some stuff. Maybe they're holding back some stuff. Should we at least consider? No, it's just Gnosticism. Okay, well, can you explain to me first what is Gnosticism, right? So I could spot it for myself, as opposed to only when I'm at church and I'm speculating, right? And we don't really teach these big words and concepts to people, but it's like, I got basically booted from my church for literally, I was going to game night, and one of the guys there, he was asking me if I follow, because I'm a podcaster, he said, do you follow like Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, and all this stuff? This is back in April, by the way. And I'm like, no, I don't follow Shapiro. I said, I can't stand him. He's a Hezbollah agent. And they're like, didn't know what that was. I was like, all right, never mind. I said, I also don't follow Kirk because he literally endorsed a passage in the Bible that had Christ boiling and excommunicated hell. They're like, no, he didn't. All right. Pulls up the actual clip, right? You hear it verbatim. The guy is citing it from the Talmud. And you hear him say, quote, yes, those are valid verses. And I'm like, so that doesn't faze you guys at all? Well, just turn it off. Why? Are you agreeing with him? No, it's just not true. He just cited verbatim what it says. And I think this is the problem, dude, is that they hear the buzzword, anti-Semitic, and so that. It's like, no, there's people that hate Christ in this world. And if I'm calling out a false teacher, right, wouldn't it behoove you when Christ says, those who will defend me down here, I will defend before my Father in heaven? I'm like, I would like to be in that. I don't have favoritism towards somebody because they're popular. So by default, I got a call from the deacon eventually a couple weeks later. And I said, wait. So you hear what you're saying right now? Because I decided to shift it up and I used some strong language. Although the clip that I played, excrement. There's no S word, there's no F word, there's no C word. I said excrement. It's the same thing I just texted you prior to calling you. That's a bad, extreme word. Well, no, you're saying my violation today is because I didn't keep the peace and just not talk about something. That is more offensive than actually defending Christ and calling out a false teacher. I'm like, I don't want to go to church anymore. This is what you condone. So yeah, they don't want to get into meat and talk about who are the devil's disciples, if you will, right? If Christ is using us as his influence, as ambassadors, right? Then how come we're not talking about what Satan uses? Well, you get a rapture attraction, so don't worry about it. Okay. I just can't stand it, dude. I don't know about you, but the tepid and lukewarm thing, I'm feeling that these days. I honestly feel like I'm voting in real time sitting next to some of these people. Because I'm like, you have no idea what's going on in the world. And they tell you to freaking get a donut and an injection. You'll do it 100 times, not asking a single question.
Dude, yeah, I'm 100% agree, man. This is like one of the things that drives me crazy is the fact that people like to use the whole idea about like flipping tables, but they don't always fully understand the context of it. Talking about like when you see things like this, when you see things that are not right, like it is okay to be able to flip tables. And even the whole idea about always talking about peace, like there is a time for peace and then there's a time to stand up for what you believe in. Like even looking at the full context about turning the other cheek or going the extra mile, all that type of stuff. Like if you look at the context of how that was actually meant, it wasn't intended to be like I'm just gonna, sit down and take it. It was intended to be disrespectful in that context because at that time it was talking about the Roman warrior. So the whole thing is that if you turn the other cheek and you don't actually fight back, that makes the Roman warrior look weak because he's sitting there beating somebody that's not actually fighting back. It wasn't a matter of being weak or standing down. It was a matter of making that person actually understand the concept of what they were doing. And that going the extra mile, that was also another thing that, a soldier could have, somebody basically carry their stuff back to a certain location. But if you go farther than that location, then it looks bad on the soldier, like they're overusing the person. Like all of these concepts, like people don't understand the full context of it. Like, again, it was never talking about basically just sitting down and taking it. All of it was talking about, either one, standing up for what you believe in, or two, making a point that somebody else is able to see the error for their ways. It was never about just sitting down. It's making others see their errors.
They say, twisting it to make it. It's like, no, I'm giving you context. I'm giving you real me. So that, the Bible has a little bit more edification, application for you. And you're getting mad at me because I tell you the truth. And this makes me look at the stuff that come here. Maybe because I speak to you. I'm just asking questions and giving context. This is offensive to you.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave.
But I mean, I feel like that's the center focus, though. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that there is so much truth within it, then why would it be the religion that ends up getting the most attack for it? Because it seems like if you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, if you're anything else, there's these groups that'll protect you no matter what you say, no matter what you do. But if you're a Christian, you're always the one that's being mocked. You're always the one that's being made fun of. You're always the one that's being reversed and flipped. You always have people trying to throw your own words back in your face, not even understanding the context themselves. Like, there's a reason for that. Like, it's because the reason why it is the most scrutinized religion is because it is the only one that has full truth and honest. Like after you understand all these other messiahs, there's no other messiah that makes sense other than Jesus. Again, you go back into the fact that they removed the book of Daniel because it literally talked about him way before he was actually going to come. But again, people got to remove that because it doesn't fit into that context, you know?
Yeah, sure. What's the first thing? Talking about the Prince of Peace. So something basically with Trump was taking. Just slam it in the face for saying blasphemy. But it's like, there's favoritism towards people where it's like, can we leave?
I mean, how many biblical figures have been punished for their acts too? Because, I mean, even people forget that. I mean, Saul, he didn't come to a good end. I mean, even David. David is somebody that everybody looks up to in the Bible, but everybody always forgets the portion of the story where he sent out basically his best friend to go die because he had relations and ended up getting his wife pregnant. And in turn, because of that, God ends up taking that child, and then the next child that ends up being born is Solomon, of course. But everybody forgets that even these characters make mistakes. Like, but everybody just wants to look past this type of stuff, you know? They don't want to talk about that faction of the story because it doesn't fit the context that they want to hear.
Well, I think that was the thing that I was noticing, dude. When I was going through on a domestic scale, when I was adopted, I wasn't like it was a line of bully, I guess you could say. It was like a tattletale thing with like, if you want to get in good graces with dad, you have to tattletale on somebody else. So it was like a pecking order of whoever had the best story is snitching on somebody else. And at the same time, my dad was messing with some of my sisters because they're also adopted. And for me, like, I think it hit me in the face one day. It's like, well, you claim to be a big Christian guy, but then you're creating victims, right? And then you basically are hushing them and you're gaslighting them, making them think that their, trauma is not worth hearing about. And then I'm seeing on an international scale, people are all getting deceived. And I'm like, so wait, the genuine people are getting gaslighted up the wazoo, whereas the ones who are lying and deceiving through their teeth and can't be real and genuine and apologize, those are the ones that keep getting by. And I think I was seeing a little bit of a pattern, domestic, church, and then international when C19 hit. And it just really amped me up, dude, saying we got to start speaking out because right now they're trampling all over us. And if it has to be just me, I'll do it because I'm not hearing it from behind the pulpit. And it grieves my heart, dude. You have good intentioned people being lied to every Sunday, but then they end up being happy just sitting in the mud. What kind of existence is that?
Man, I mean, even with, like we were kind of mentioning earlier, too, those people that are sitting in the mud, it's like they don't even necessarily always have the tools to even be able to defend their faith in the first place. Because a lot of the time, those are those people that they sit and they hear the word every Sunday, but they don't actually see the word for themselves. They're the people that, they may go every week, but when the pastor says, we're going to read from this portion of the Bible, they don't actually get the Bible out and actually look at the words. And if you're not actually looking at the words and actually understanding it, then you're going to have these people that'll back you into these corners that you could easily get out of if you actually understood what you were talking about, but most people do not. And that was part of the reason why I kind of pushed back into the converting back into being a Christian again, was because I realized that, I'd been spreading the word of God without even realizing it for years. And then a lot of the time, like, these people that are there can't even do it for themselves, which, it makes me sad, man, that, again, I've been around this stuff my entire life. Like I said, I was raised Catholic and everything. So like I've had years and years and years of hearing these stories. So, without even realizing it, I've fully understood everything and actually have the ability to be able to back up my beliefs and everything. But it saddens my heart, man, how many people like just have been going for years, but just do not have that ability. They just talk again about like the happiness and love aspect. And they don't actually talk about the whole defending, your faith, the whole aspect of like, the only way that this cross is going to come off my neck is with my head. Like, you have to defend your faith to the death. And a lot of these people, if they get pushed into a corner, I hate to say it, but, they're going to end up following somebody that, probably isn't the right person to follow just because they don't know what else to do at that point because they don't have the ability to defend why they feel or believe the things that they do. They're just going to say, well, you're right. You got me on that one. Maybe you are right. Maybe I should follow this person. And then that's how you end up falling into a false idol. Which, again, might be part of the grand manipulation anyways, because if you don't truly understand the word, even though you think you do, it's really, really easy to change people's perception of the word, because if you've never seen it for yourself and somebody goes, oh, no, it actually says this, and you go, wait, does it actually say that? And then you start questioning everything else, and it spirals down, and then once you question everything, then how easy is it to somebody to drop one more bomb on that person and completely have them flip and not even, realize what they were even defending in the first place?
Everybody has potential, but they would prefer to sit on the sidelines because there's no resistance on the sidelines, right? And I think basically being stagnant makes them so comfortable that they don't want to stand up and do anything. And I've asked people the question before. It's like, the Pharisees in heaven or in hell? Obviously, they're crucified. I'm like, okay. But they also were purveyors of God's word when they died. You would think people who knew God's word would be, on top of things they would recognize. But no. He says the prostitutes will get into heaven before you. I don't think you really take that seriously, dude, because it's like, these are the guys that knew their Torah. And they didn't recognize. So what does that say about the average church? More.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. Because, man, even with a lot of the people that end up going to learn how to be able to spread the word, like, it's unfortunate that a lot of the people that I hear that come out of that, they talk about how they hear a lot of this, like, psychological, I don't want to say brainwashing, but, like, all this, like, psychological play that you have to do in order to be able to, like, portray the word to people. And that comes into, like, manipulation, man, because if you're truly spreading the word, it's one of those things that the right people are going to feel it in their heart and they just know that it's the true word. But if you're using these manipulation tactics, then you're tricking people into following the word, again, without them actually understanding why they're following the word. And what good is that doing for them if they don't actually understand the word that they're following? That's kind of how you end up getting, like, the cult mentality. And I know a lot of people joke about, like, churches being cults, but honestly, some of them are, because a lot of them, again, they don't understand what they're actually preaching, and they're all blindly following this leader who also doesn't understand what he's preaching. So that's why you get this confusion with a lot of people, that they go into the wrong churches and they get that cult mentality, because those are basically like cults. And I mean, think about how many people have been deceived through time. I mean, even just like the entire Islamic religion. I mean, they all follow Muhammad as, the Messiah, supposedly. But even within his word, he basically says that he's not the Messiah, because he states that if he was not the Messiah, he would die this particular way. And that ends up being the way that he dies. He ends up killing this entire village of people. This woman ends up saying, let me cook you a meal. And the meal ends up being poisoned. He ends up dying. And he literally, one of his last words were basically that he wasn't the Messiah. But yet, look at everybody else that's blindly following the word, and they all see him as the Messiah. There's a whole entire group of people that are more than willing to kill every single Christian person they see, blindly following their faith, and clearly looking at Muhammad as the Messiah, when again, it contradicts itself within its own word. Like, the only one that I haven't seen that doesn't contradict itself within its own word is the Christian Bible. Like, the newer, like, the Christian Bible, any point where people have found a point where it seems like it's a contradiction, you add more context, and then you realize that it's not a contradiction. But then you get into the Torah, you get into, the Quran, like, it's all just constant contradicting, because it seems like after the point where Jesus was crucified, the Hebrew Bible was completely just misconstrued at that point. Like, they had the set word up until that point, and then that was the point where they knew that they messed up. So they started switching the words to make it look like they knew that, like, they didn't mess up. Because even, in the book of Revelation, they talk about, the Jewish people as being like the synagogue of Satan, and the fact that, the ones that don't understand what they're following, they'll still be in the graces of heaven, and they'll have the ability to see Jesus as the Savior. But that just shows the fact that there is that manipulation in there, and people don't understand the manipulation. But the hierarchy within the church clearly started manipulating things to be able to fit that paradigm, and they contradict themselves within it because they got into a point where it only makes sense that Jesus is the Messiah. And now everything that they've had or said that makes it so he doesn't look like the Messiah is just constant contradictions. It doesn't make sense. Like, if you try to lie, you're just going to pile up with continuous lies. But if you tell the truth, then you're going to have this fluent, continuous story that completely makes sense. And as far as what I've seen, it seems like the Holy Bible, as far as all of these different paradigms of what, starts off essentially as the same religion, that's the only one that continues on and the story actually makes sense. The rest of them have this stopping point where they just stop making sense. And there's a reason for that. Again, you go back into the fact that why is Christianity the most scrutinized religion? It's because it's the only one that, under high pressure, no matter what you put it under, it still pulls through and makes sense.
Yeah.
Inquiries About Reality will return after this quick commercial break. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
And I think it's Surah 48, 1 through 2, where it's saying that, Muhammad, may God forgive you for your sins and stuff like that. I said, well, that's a direct contrast to what we get with Christ, right? Him who knew no sin. It's like, okay, so I got news for you. If this is in your book, right? You wanted to read their book, and it says that he knew, he was sinful. Why are we following a sinful man? Wouldn't we want to follow the one that knew no sin? And I told people, a lot of the Muslims, they're very similar to Catholics. They do the feast days, they do, traditions, they get the prayer mat, they do all these things. But a lot of them, if you study them, and I live next to some Turks, they're very much like Catholics, dude. They only do the holidays and the highlights, but they really don't know too much about their faith. It's a ripe opportunity to witness to a lot of them. And most Christians are just like, nah, we're on terror. We don't talk to their type. Okay. I don't know, dude. It boggles my mind.
Like I said, because people, that's the whole thing with like manipulation. You want to be able to push that group into their own particular group. And it seems like the manipulation nowadays is it seems like they're trying to push Christians just into Christians. But the problem is, once you all start congregating as a big group, it's real easy to come in with a firing squad once you have everybody cornered into a wall by themselves. The trick is you got to disperse within everybody, because that's half the thing. You got to spread to all nations. You got to spread the word to all nations. And if you're not doing that, then you're not spreading the word. I mean, people are afraid of going against that battle to spread the word. But I mean, look at the apostles. Everybody looks up to them, but most of them did not meet happy ends. I mean, Matthew ended up getting murdered in Ethiopia. Most of them ended up getting killed because of spreading the gospel. But, the thing was, they knew at the end that there's going to be a point. There's going to be a reason for the things that they did. But, I'll let you go back, but yeah.
No, dude, I think that's part of the thing that I was saying. Is like, they understood back then, my life is on the line. My word is my bond. And today it's kind of like, meh, I like seeing it in the cowboy movie, when the cowboy makes this big speech, he's the tough guy in town. But when it actually comes down to like brass tacks, are you willing to do that in like, your local interaction with people that you know? Most people don't have the guts to do that, dude. And we read these stories about Daniel and his friends, standing up to the king of Babylon and be like, no, I'm not bowing to your statue. I don't care what the repercussions are. I'm willing to die for what I believe in. Right? And to say this about statists are willing to what they believe in. A Christian is willing to die what they believe in. And there is definitely a difference.
And I mean, even going into, I want to bring this up because I find this absolutely interesting. So the whole idea, talking about the afterlife from like the Jewish perspective without Jesus. So if you're just viewing it simply as they stated, they talk about Sheol, which, for anybody that's not familiar, it's basically this place where it just seems like it's essentially non-existence until the time that the Messiah comes. You're just existing in this absolute just void of absolute nothingness. So if you're looking at it from that mentality, that's what you're working towards. Like, it's really, really hard to be able to stand up for something when, even if you believe, like, that's that. The reason why Christians, one, I feel like usually are willing to fight to the death for their religion, and why if you aren't, you should understand the whole concept of like what Jesus really represents. He essentially unlocked the keys to heaven, because the whole concept was when he died, he went down to Sheol, he opened those doors up, and he made it so that the souls were able to leave and able to actually go up to heaven. So if you don't actually have Jesus within that paradigm, then essentially you're just sitting in this place of non-existence. So for me personally, I would rather have that understanding of actually going somewhere and actually having a reason for the thing that I'm fighting for, rather than just existing in this place of non-existence. And again, if somebody can offer you that, they offer you the ability to have this eternal life and be in this happy place for eternal life for all existence, that should be something that you're more than willing to stand up for and willing to fight for and willing to actually try to spread that word to other people to hopefully have the same eternity for them. Because that's the hope too, is that you just don't want that eternity for you. You'd love to see that for all of mankind. And that's part of where all the spreading and everything comes into it. But like I said, if you kind of exist in these paradigms of that not existing, then it's kind of hard to be able to stand up for the things you believe in. Like I said, the Jewish paradigm, according to that, the Messiah hasn't actually come yet. So everybody's just sitting in this area of Sheol, even though they clearly have this figure that is the Messiah that came. And I think that the whole aspect of them saying like, oh, he didn't combine all nations. I mean, in a weird way, you're going to always have those people that have free will and they're going to go against it. But in a way, he did unite all nations, because the only religion that touches every corner of the world that everybody can read and has been translated into every single language that teaches peace is Christianity. So, he did exactly what you claim to do. But again, there's always going to be those bad seeds in free will. And that's where, revelation, everything comes in. There's never this point of talking about absolutely every single person being over on the same side. There are going to be people that just never end up making it over because they are just evil at heart. But I mean, that's part of the thing, though. You have to be able to go through the fire to become pure. And if you don't have that ability to go through the fire and remain pure, then, you're not going to be somebody that unfortunately is able to make it to God's graces, as much as he would love to see that, because he doesn't want to see any of his children fail. But, he gives you every opportunity in the world. And if you dive bomb every single opportunity he gives you, at a certain point, there's only so much he can help you, because that's, again, where free will comes in. People forget that aspect. They think that you're automatically going to make it to heaven just because you're a Christian. There's still the aspect of free will. If you're a Christian and you still choose to do evil and you don't actually defend the word or spread the word or do any of these things that you promise to do, then, you're not necessarily in God's graces. You're not part of God's army. You're not part of, spreading the word, the gospel. You're none of that. You're just simply somebody that's wearing the cloak, and essentially you're a wolf in sheep's clothing. Give you.
Just put your faith in. Be the Great Commission. Go forth and make disciples of all nations. You're useless to him. He's putting faith in you to be his representative. To be his. This is. He did do for him.
And as they say, for every little bit that you give him, he will give back in tenfold. So, for every little bit you do for him, he's going to return it way more than what you could ever possibly imagine. So a lot of people also forget that mentality too, that, doesn't, if you're only able to do this little bit, it's better than doing absolutely nothing. But no matter what you get, again, you're going to get back 10 times fold. So, continue on like spreading the word, because otherwise, again, what are you doing as a Christian? That's their entire philosophy behind what you're trying to do. That's the whole concept behind what you're trying to do. And if you're not actually making use of the skills that he gave you, then what are you actually doing? Like, even the whole thing that you said, just sitting back and simply just waiting for it. I'm one of those believers that thinks that, I want to say all things can't be solved by praying, because that definitely is the case, but it's a matter of understanding the things that are in front of you. Like if somebody's sick, for example, there's people that believe that if you just pray, they're going to get better. I definitely believe that that is a possibility, but on the other side, there is still these things that God will put somebody else in that path, because that's the miracle. The people that will deny medical help because they just want to keep praying, God sent that person in your path to help you. That was the miracle. That is what you prayed for, but you're going to pass it along simply because you're waiting for this miraculous miracle to happen. I don't think that all of God's work is in miraculous miracles. Sometimes it's in setting these perfect things in place where they're supposed to, so that things will fall into place. And sometimes people look over that because they want to have, I don't want to say too much faith in something miraculously happening for them, but they don't take the interpretation into the physical world that God not only works in the spiritual, but also works in the physical. So sometimes these gifts that he presents you aren't necessarily things that are gonna miraculously happen for you, but things that are set into place so that you can take these steps to make this thing happen. It's almost like, he can make you an elevator to bring you right to that point, but his other way of doing it is he can give you the steps to make it to that point. You're gonna have to do a little bit of extra work, but it's gonna be more rewarding in the long run. And in turn with that step by step too, you'll also understand the fact that God has a bunch of different moving components all happening. It's not just simply him coming down and snapping his fingers and making everything better for you. every single thing that he's doing in this world has a moving component, and all of it has moving pieces that are all supposed to come together. And if you don't understand that everybody is working together to try to get to this end point, then again, you're just blocking yourself off from the other half of the faith, which is having a community of people in God, and not just the communion with you and God, but also having the family of God behind you with God. Oh yeah, no worries, man. This was a fun conversation anyways. We'll definitely have to do a part 2 for this at some point, hopefully when you're feeling a little bit better too, of course.
Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back to the show. So let's hop right in.
With that, of course, we will wrap it up towards the end, and we'll definitely make sure that we schedule a part 2. But before I let you go completely, I always like to end the show with some words of wisdom. So if there's any words of wisdom you might want to bestow on the listeners today, man, what might it be?
Most moments become memories. Make every one of yours count.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a good one, man. It makes me think of the whole aspect of, you won't necessarily always dwell on the past if you're grateful for everything. So if you're grateful for the memories you have, then you won't dwell on them, and you'll just be happy with the memories that you have and appreciate the memories that you have. And if anybody wanted to possibly come and check out your podcast or any of the awesome work you do, man, where can everybody come and find you, and where can everybody come and find your podcast?
Yeah. And to daily pod, Spotify, and YouTube. If you can, Patreon. If you can't support financially, say to what?
Because the only way these shows can happen is, with your guys' love and support. And the only way that we can keep getting to the bottom of some of these Christian philosophies that need to be discussed is by people hopefully supporting our work. Because, people always forget about the behind the scenes that, you guys get a free podcast to listen to throughout the week and everything. But, we have to pay for the programs to run it. We have to take all the time, all of that stuff. So, any support, whether it's just leaving a review, interacting with us, sharing the show, if people even have the ability to possibly check out the Patreons and stuff like that, any support from you guys goes a really, really long way. And we more than appreciate it from you guys. And we wouldn't even be able to do the show if it wasn't for you guys out there listening. So I just want to point that out. And again, man, I appreciate you making the time to come on today. I appreciate you fighting through being sick to be able to still have this awesome conversation. Glad you're able to at least run an hour. And next time we'll make sure that we're feeling a little bit better, and we'll go for a round 2, man. Oh yeah, no worries, man. This was a fun conversation anyways. We'll definitely have to do a part 2 for this at some point, hopefully when you're feeling a little bit better too, of course. Oh, no worries, man. I guess with that, of course, we will wrap it up towards the end, and we'll definitely make sure that we schedule a part 2. But before I let you go completely, I always like to end the show with some words of wisdom. So if there's any words of wisdom you might want to bestow on the listeners today, man, what might it be? If you need a second to think, by the way, I can just cut out the gap in the post, by the way. Oh yeah, that's definitely a good one, man. It makes me think of the whole aspect of, you won't necessarily always dwell on the past if you're grateful for everything. So if you're grateful for the memories you have, then you won't dwell on them, and you'll just be happy with the memories that you have and appreciate the memories that you have. And if anybody wanted to possibly come and check out your podcast or any of the awesome work you do, man, where can everybody come and find you, and where can everybody come and find your podcast?
Yeah, Manna, as that's with 2 N's, daily podcasts, Spotify, Rumble, and YouTube. And if you can, Patreon. But if you can't support financially, as I always say, tier 1 is always prayer, and as well, a like does help get that out there, or share.
Because the only way these shows can happen is, with your guys' love and support. And the only way that we can keep getting to the bottom of some of these Christian philosophies that need to be discussed is by people hopefully supporting our work. Because, people always forget about the behind the scenes that, you guys get a free podcast to listen to throughout the week and everything. But, we have to pay for the programs to run it. We have to take all the time, all of that stuff. So, any support, whether it's just leaving a review, interacting with us, sharing the show, if people even have the ability to possibly check out the Patreons and stuff like that, any support from you guys goes a really, really long way. And we more than appreciate it from you guys. And we wouldn't even be able to do the show if it wasn't for you guys out there listening. So just want to point that out.
Bad dude.
And again, man, I appreciate you making the time to come on today. I appreciate you fighting through being sick to be able to still have this awesome conversation. Glad you're able to at least run an hour. And next time we'll make sure that we're feeling a little bit better, and we'll go for a round 2, man.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
If anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok are the ones I'm the most active on. Or you guys can also get a hold of me through the submission forum, which is available up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of me is through calling or texting the Bizarre Reality Hotline 24/7, and that number is 313-364-1551. And every single thing that I mentioned is all available in the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're